The artist has portrayed some of the most famous public figures of our time, including John Depp, Steven Tyler, and Jim Craig. Also, Brian has been selected as the official commemorative artist for Major League Baseball 2007, 2008, and 2009 All-Star Games, as well as the official artist for the 2007 World Series held in Boston, Massachusetts. However, much of his private life has remained private, until now, as we will try to omit some of the elements which make up the artist the way he is.
Hello, Brian. We know that it took you 6 months to get into the soldier stories of the Vietnam War to paint the fallen hero's portrait. As mentioned in your interview for the Painting Heroes documentary by Mark Allison, it was an emotionally challenging experience for you as you tried to emphasize with what every soldier was going through.
You talk to any of these guys and they're just going, it's about the guys who didn't come back. It's about the families who lost sons and daughters and fathers. We want people to remember that. That's an incredible responsibility for somebody who plays with paint for a living, to get that right.
What do you think the message of the painting was?
Yeah, the message from this particular project, the Vietnam project, was these guys never wanted anybody else to forget the soldiers and who never came home, who got killed, who died, who were prisoners of war. And the more I talked to the actual soldiers, their biggest message they wanted folks to come away after looking at the painting was never forget them.
So the painting process involved veterans that you invited to your studio to learn what they wanted to have conveyed in the portrait. Do you still keep in touch with the veterans?
So during the project, I had asked if the men who hired me to do the project could have some of the in-country soldiers from Vietnam come talk to me, if they were comfortable. And over those 6 months of creating the painting, these soldiers would come in and they would talk to me. Slowly but surely, they would open up a little bit. And the more they talked, the more you realize how affected they were by this war. And then the more responsibility I felt to get the painting right, to get the message that they wanted to the public out there. So after I even finished the painting, they still come to the studio. We still have coffee. They will come in. They're always welcome in my studio. And it's been a great friendship too.
Were only veterans from Massachusetts able to visit your studio or from other states as well?
Massachusetts, Rhode Island, there's some other guys from different parts of the country who will call me. And, it's become all over, and more of the veterans have stopped in or have come by to see the paintings and the artwork. And it's been a blessing for me because it's a history lesson. So it's pretty amazing to hear these guys' stories.
The painting is for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall Committee and is a fundraising component for the planned Vietnam Memorial Wall in the Fall River, Massachusetts, the prototype of the one erected in Washington, D.C. What is the face of the project now?
The stage of the project, they brought me in on the project. So I'm just like a small piece in helping raise money. I don't know exactly where they're at. They are building the wall already, and it is in Massachusetts, and the wall is being constructed already. And the money raised from the painting and the prints of the painting go towards help fund the wall, repair the wall, maintain the wall. And that will be unveiled this spring, I believe. Once I did this painting, the first Vietnam painting, and we unveiled, and I saw the emotional impact it had on, there were hundreds of people in the room, and I saw what it did for the families, what it did to bring awareness to what these guys have been suffering for the last 50 years. I just felt one painting wasn't enough to tell their story. So I wanted to do more. And they didn't ask me to do it. Nobody's paying me to do it. I just felt I needed to do it, tell the rest of their narrative or their story. So I came up with 5 more ideas, 5 more big paintings. They're probably like 4 to 5, maybe 6 or 7 feet tall or wide. And I came back to the soldiers. I said, would you guys help me again? Because they would come into the studio, and on every turn of the painting, they would look and they would make sure I had all the details correct. No, you have to fix the helmet. No, you have to fix the gun. No, you have to fix this part of the uniform. And without their help, I couldn't have made that painting. So moving forward, I said, look, I got an idea to make 5 more paintings, but I really need your help to come back. Will you agree to that? And they said they would love to come in and help again. And in return, once the paintings are complete, I will sell the prints of those paintings, and all the money goes towards helping those guys build the wall, maintain the wall, and use it for what they need it for.
How did the pandemic affect your life and work as an artist, and what do you think could bring in revenue these days?
Before the pandemic, a lot of my work came from attending sporting events or music concerts or charity events. And I would go around the country and be part of these different charities or these events and network with people. And a lot of work came from that. But since the pandemic started, everything closed down, as you know, and I had to reinvent and rethink a lot of my work because it dried up overnight. So one of the main things that I was able to do was open up I've never done it before. I've opened up an online store. So allowing people to buy some prints of my work, and I've never really done it. And it had become very helpful to me and my family because it provided a revenue source for us. But that was one main thing I had to do. And then also, it gave me time to look at other projects that I always wanted to paint and create, and I didn't have the time to do because I was always traveling or because I was always going to different parts of the country or different events. Now I was home and I could focus on some of these other projects that I had in my mind creatively, and I was able to turn around and sell those as well. So I was able to focus on making more products, so to speak, and that was very helpful. So I didn't want to waste the time that I was given by just sitting around or getting depressed over it. I just kind of kept working.
I'm really glad from the staging girl. She said you need to break away from your sequel. My eyes make it Sunday. Why don't you learn to play?
Could you please share your childhood and youth memories with us? When did you realize that you wanted to be an artist and started making art?
Sure. As a kid, we were always out playing, and I was always out in the yard or out in the street playing some sort of sport with all my friends, like many kids here do. And so I was always interested in that. So how I ended up getting into painting, sports, and the music and the celebrities that I paint is because I was always interested in this stuff as a kid, and I always played, and I was not great enough to go on to make a career of it, but I always enjoyed it, like many people. And as I went on to college, I went to college for art, and I was always encouraged by my parents, hey, you're good at art, you're going to follow art. I was terrible in school. It took me forever to get through a class or to study. I was not good at it. So I was good at sports. I was good at art. That's about it. So I wasn't good enough at sports. So my parents were, hey, you should go to school for art if you can. And nobody knew how to make a living at it. They said, hey, you're good at it. You should go to college for it. And that's kind of how I started moving in the direction of art. And slowly but surely, you met people in college, and I would take on a job where I would work for a magazine and draw for the articles. I would draw the illustrations for the articles that would go along with it, and you kind of learn it's a job, and you have to meet a deadline, and you have to show up on time, and you have to be responsible. You can't just wait for inspiration. So you start to learn those things as you get older, and then one thing leads to another, where you meet somebody else, and they're over here. They say, hey, we have a job for you, and that's kind of how it started. And it took me a while, but that I would say that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Brian Fox is one of the most talented artists that I have ever met, said Jim Craig, a former goaltender of the U.S. Olympic hockey team that won the gold medal at the 1918 Winter Olympics. You are the author of a portrait of Craig draped in the American flag and the Miracle on Ice painting. It was signed by all the members of the 1918 U.S. hockey team, including Craig. Can you share with us, how did your friendship develop?
So how I met Jim Craig was I did a painting of the American hockey team, the 1980 Olympic Miracle on Ice. And he was doing a signing, a private signing of many things like hockey sticks or pucks or masks or whatever he was doing. And I happen to know somebody who brought me to his office, and I did this painting, and the painting was 6 feet tall. I brought this painting where the USA hockey team was playing the Soviet team, and it was a 6-foot painting, and Jim Craig saw it, and he was like, well, this is pretty cool. And I said, well, thank you. And he's like, well, you're the guy who painted it? Said, yeah. And that's how we became, we got to know each other. But over time, I stayed in touch with him and would show him some of my new work. And then we developed a friendship over those years to now where he's a great guy. Like, he'll call or I'll talk to him. But when he comes into town, I'll stop in the studio. And he's taught me a lot about business and marketing. And he's a very sharp man. And so a friendship had developed because I did a painting of him back in 1980. So it's pretty surreal.
So far, you have done 2 paintings of that hockey game, right? A painting of the team and a portrait of Craig, which impressively depicts his emotions during that triumphal moment. But emotions, I would say, contradictory to it. You could actually capture the moment. What do you think he felt when he saw the complete work?
When they won the game, that the cameras were still on him, and he had this over his shoulder, the flag over his shoulders, but you could read he's asking for his father. Where's my dad? Where's my father? So as an artist, I wanted to paint that emotional moment in time and portray Jim the person, not just Jim the hockey player. So I felt I wanted to do that painting. And when I showed him that painting, he had come by the house to see it. And he told me a lot of the backstory behind it. He said his mother had died and he was missing his mother tremendously, but he was looking for his father. And you could see the emotion in this moment in time after they won this important game. And it's about the human connection. And it's very similar to the Vietnam painting, where it's about the people. It's about the subjects or the portrait of the human connection. So that's really what I was trying to capture. And he just happened to be playing a game or sport where, but we as people connect to, here's a man looking for his father, or his son looking for his father after this incredible win. So I was just trying to capture that. Years later, he had asked me to, he had written a book, and he said, hey, can we use your painting on my book? So that told me that he really did like it. He wasn't just being polite.
I think you listen to music while painting. Do you think it contributes to creating your masterpieces?
Music is very important. I grew up in a family where my father was a drummer, and my brother plays in the guitar. And music has always been around. I've been always to concerts when I was little. My father used to take me out to these concerts, these rock concerts. And so it's always been an integral part of, my childhood. And now I just love to listen to music, and, having it in the background, it just gets me in the mood. If you're painting sports, certain music does it. Or if I'm even painting some of the rock stars, I listen to their music, and it's very helpful. Puts you right in the right mindset.
I saw on Instagram that one of your paintings has been destroyed. I believe it was a portrait of Mike McCready. It was painful to see. How often does it happen to you, and why do you think artists become frustrated?
Not to every painting, but there are many times I paint over and over and over and over. My manager would be like, just finish the painting. It looks fine. I'm like, no, it's not right. I got to change it. And, you get so frustrated, and sometimes you get so frustrated, you just paint over the whole thing. I've done that many times. And then there are some times where I'll just totally destroy the canvas, where I'll burn it with fire. It's like, I hate it so much. So and then it's not good business, but at the same time, it's good for my head.
You have a huge fame drawing famous people, celebrities in motion. How do you select your subjects?
How do I select the subjects? It's a couple of reasons. One, I have to like them. Or I as an artist, or I like their music, or I like what they do in the movies, or I like if they play on a sports team. So that's one way. But two, I have to be, maybe I'm influenced by them. Or three, sometimes I know them. I didn't know Kurt Cobain. I just was very influenced by his music. And I wanted to do a portrait of him, and I hadn't done any of him. So I wanted to paint that just for the heck of it. And nobody asked me to do it. But then one of my collectors came along and said, hey, I want to buy that. And it turned out that I was able to sell the painting too. So it worked out well.
How do you know Steven Tyler from Aerosmith?
Yeah, I was introduced to Steven by a mutual friend. He was the mutual friend. His name is Kevin, and he's an actor and from Boston. And Kevin Chapman, and he said, hey, Steven should see your artwork. And that's kind of how it happened. It was that organic. And then I showed him some of my work, and he asked me to do some stuff for him. And that's kind of how the friendship started, where it started out as I was just doing some work for him. And because I live in the Boston area, he lives in the Boston area, we were able to connect on a couple of different times and get to know each other that way. And then eventually I ended up working with him and his charity, Janie's Fund, which helps out abused girls. And we raised a lot of money, almost $600,000 or $700,000 just for his fund with the artwork he asked me to create. So he came up with these cool ideas. He said, look, I got an idea. Maybe you paint live and we'll sell these paintings, and the money will go towards helping the charity. So that's kind of the quick story of how I met him and how I've been working with him. And he'll text me, he'll call and say, hey, look, here's my idea. Can you do this? Come on out to the party, the event out in Los Angeles. And it's a great fundraising event. And I kind of just follow his lead.
Art plays an important role in charities. And as you have previously said, you create your paintings specifically for fundraising and charities. What issues concern you the most?
That's a good question. Well, it's all different. I mean, there's a lot of charities I work with, and it's a lot of times it's with people I've gotten to know. So, for example, Steven Tyler, I know that his charity is very dear to him, and it helps out abused girls, which it's just an amazing charity. They help out so many people. But then when I worked with some of the football players, American football players, Matt Light and the Light Foundation, he helps out youths. So high school, so 14 years old to 18 years old. It's a leadership camp that they work on. He's hands-on. He works with them directly. I help him out. So he's training these inner city kids to learn how to be men. And that's so important. So most of these charities are very important. There's just so many to help. I'm trying to think, Major League Baseball have helped Major League Baseball or the National Hockey League with their charity events. And so all these monies that are raised, if you give the artwork to people who can do bigger things with it, like Steven Tyler, like Matt Light, like the New England Patriots, or like the Major League Baseball, they can turn it into so much more than what I could do personally. But if I can just help out a little bit, a little goes a long way in the right hands. So that's what I try to do. I try to align myself with people who are going to do big things for other people.
How long does it take for you to paint a single portrait?
Well, I don't know. And that's a good question. So the funny thing is all my business friends will say, you need to understand how long it takes you to do a painting because time is money. Well, my artist friends totally understand going, I don't know. I'm working on 10 at once. Sometimes I'm working on this one painting one day during the week, this week, but then I don't work on it till 2 weeks later. I never keep track. So I'm terrible at the business side. So I don't know. Could take me hundreds of hours. Like the Vietnam painting, which was really all portraits. It took 6 months.
And do you have the manager?
Yeah, his name is Greg, and he's a friend too, and he's great, and he's not an artist.
What do you think is your role in society as a painter?
Picasso said this, and I think this is kind of sums it up. So, and I got, well, one, everybody's different. So every artist is going to have a different answer. So I don't have one answer for every artist. I can only answer for myself. And Picasso had said, the meaning of life is to find your gift. And the purpose of life is to give it away. So I know that's a broad answer, but that's kind of how I approach things. So whether it be helping with charities or giving somebody a painting or doing a job like the Vietnam Project, or, you do these special projects. Those are the things that I feel like that's my purpose, to help somebody else. Because I feel like I just play with paint for a minute. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a policeman. I'm not a firefighter. Those people are amazing to me. I play with paint. So I try to find some sort of meaning with this painting that I do. It's not life or death, but I sometimes feel badly about it because I'm like, oh, that's all I do, So I try to find ways to plug in and help out.
How would you describe yourself in a painting as a metaphoric character if you had to draw yourself based on your personality?
I don't know if I've done portraits of myself, just practicing, but I don't like to paint myself at all. So I don't like to do that. Okay.
And what do you think is your character?
My character?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. Somebody else who knows me would probably be able to answer better. Like I said, I just try to be, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. That's a good question. That's a very good question. I just try to be selfless. Does that make sense? But I always feel like I'm screwing up. I always feel like I'm not doing enough. I always feel like it's never good enough. It's this weird balance. You want to be this good person in society. At the same time, I always see all my flaws. I always see how I screw up. I always see how I get mad over things. It's this very back and.
Is it an internal conflict between a protagonist and antagonist?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely that internal fight or internal struggle where you just go, well, I'd like to do this, or I'd like to act this way and be perfect about it, but then I don't, and it's a very frustrating thing.
If you had to write a book about yourself, what would you call it, and who would be the main character except for you? Let's say your book has only two characters, you and.
I never really thought about if there was a book, or if I was in a book, or who would be in it. That's a good question. I never really thought about it. But I guess, my wife, I've been with her for 28 years, when we were dating and married and in combination. And she's a pretty amazing person. So, she's definitely my anchor for many things. So, hey, and she's not an artist, she's an accountant.
What title would you give to the book?
If I were to pick a book title that would describe me, it would be a huge mess, because I'm all over the place. I am like a whirlwind. I am a big mess. I'd like to wish all the Uzbekistan viewers and the artists and everybody out there during this pandemic just to stay safe, be patient with everybody else, and just be kind to one another as we go through this. It's a very difficult time for everybody.